It's about 4 years since I first started doing the high-dose iodine protocol as a video diary. This was because I had an underactive thyroid. It was borderline. It wasn't actually diagnosed by my doctor. But I had been feeling really tired for months up until this happened, and I'd been doing a lot of research trying to find out what was wrong with me. I was sleeping 10 hours a night, but it didn't seem to matter how much sleep I got. The tiredness just did not go away. I'd also put on about 28 pounds quite quickly in a matter of weeks, it seemed. And the weight it didn't matter what I did, what kind of diets I did, I couldn't shift that weight. And it really concerned me because the weight just seemed to be going up and up. And I realised that if I didn't do something about this, I would be almost in the obese category, and I could get type 2 diabetes. I've never had a weight problem in my life before this happened. You know, I'd put on weight sometimes, and when that happened, I could lose it by eating more healthily or going on a diet or something. But when I had this borderline thyroid issue, I just could not shift the weight, and I was tired. I used to run, and suddenly I found out that I couldn't run. If I ran more than 20 minutes, I would be tired, not just the next day, but for several days afterwards, sometimes for a week afterwards. So I knew that something was wrong, and when I heard about the high-dose iodine protocol, I mean, this is really summarising it all. This was quite a lengthy process, but I heard about the high-dose iodine protocol where you take high doses of iodine, and I decided to film it as a video diary, and that first video was 4 years ago now. It took me about 14 months, I think, before my thyroid health improved. And when it improved, it was almost overnight. Not quite overnight, but basically I went hill walking at the end of March 2017 in a group. And I was just always at the back of the group. The group leader stopped so that I could catch up because I was so tired and I was lagging behind. But that was when I could tell things were actually starting to improve, and I just started doing intermittent fasting. By May, 2 months later in 2017, suddenly I was much fitter, and when I was hill walking with a group, I was actually at the front of the group, and I thought people were just being polite and hanging back out of politeness, but suddenly my health improved and everyone was saying, wow, you're incredibly fit. Where did that come from? And then when I lost the weight had all come off by November of that year, and people I hadn't seen for a while were just so astonished. Some of that weight went back on, but basically I haven't looked back since then. So the time has really flown since then, and it's really surprising to think that it was 3 years ago that I suddenly got better from this underactive thyroid. I haven't had any thyroid problems since then. Everything's gone smoothly. I think the most clear example is that when I had this underactive thyroid, or borderline underactive thyroid, my temperature, my core body temperature, was always really low, generally between 35 and 36 degrees Celsius. I can't even work out what that is in Fahrenheit. And I would often take my temperature 3 times a day. When I took my temperature, it swung wildly. It was just up and down all the time. Now when I take my temperature, it's always stable, it's always steady, around, I think, 36.9 degrees Celsius, just under 37, and it's always the same. The other thing was my pulse rate was really low. It was about 50, usually 50 beats per minute. Now when I take my pulse rate, it's about 55 beats per minute. But a low pulse rate can be an indication of fitness and even athleticism. And at the time when I had my thyroid problem, I was so unfit. It was unbelievable. I mean, if I did even a low hill walk, a little hill walk, I would be so out of breath and lagging behind the group. Now I'm much fitter, so I think that my pulse rate is more a reflection of that. For a while it went up to the 60s, maybe about 60, 65 beats a minute. But this morning when I measured it, it was 57. The most important improvement is the improvement in my health. Not only has my sleep regulated, I sleep about 7.5 hours per night now, but my fitness has massively improved. When I started getting these problems and I couldn't run anymore, I took up walking initially, and then I started hill walking, and that became a new passion. I just became crazy about hill walking and then climbing. I dropped the running and I never thought I would go back to it. But when the lockdown started, I took up running again. I did my first run the day after lockdown was announced, and I managed to stagger about 10 minutes. But after that, I started using the NHS Couch to 5k plan, which I highly recommend. I have used it in the past as well. And it just takes you through a mixture of running and walking. And I built my running up to 5k first of all. When I did my first run of 25 minutes, I was absolutely elated because it took me beyond that 20-minute mark that used to absolutely exhaust me when I had my thyroid problem. And then I was still able to run 2 days after that. And I kept going. I decided I would aim for doing a 10k. I'm not quite at the 10k yet, but this morning I ran for 60 minutes. And that was a huge milestone for me. It was just over 8 kilometres. So I'm not as fast as I used to be, but it is such an improvement on when I had my thyroid problem. So I really do think that that problem is behind me now. I might go on and do the 10k, but really what I'm aiming for is to do hill running. And now that I've been able to run for 60 minutes without stopping, the next thing I'm going to buy a pair of trail running shoes and I'm going to start running hills. Maybe just gentle hills initially. Today I ran a total elevation of 150 metres. So it's not a mountain, but I'll get there. I'm still taking high doses of iodine. Up until about a month ago, I was taking 12.5 milligrams of iodine every single day. I had actually lowered the dose for a while. I think I was taking 6.25 grams per month at one point, but I just felt that the symptoms might start to come back. So I went back to the 12.5 milligrams a day. And I was taking that steadily until about a month ago when I decided to reduce it because I was feeling warm quite a lot. I mean, we did have quite a hot spell, but I'd been monitoring my temperature and I thought my temperature was rising a little bit. So I decided to take 12.5 mg every 2 days. In other words, 6.25 mg a day. And I feel fine. I'm still full of energy and my cardio fitness has been improving. I don't take the selenium anymore. I stopped taking that about a year ago. I was taking, I can't even remember, I think it was 200 mg of selenium every day. But I read, I think someone put a comment on saying that you could overdose on selenium. And I looked into it and I felt that maybe I was being a hypochondriac, but I felt that some of the symptoms described for overdosing on selenium I might actually have. So I stopped taking it and I felt no ill effects. Maybe I just get enough selenium in my diet. I do eat quite a healthy diet, I think. I try to eat quite a healthy diet anyway. I'm not going to say much more about the high dose iodine protocol because I've said so much about it in the past. I highly recommend it, and all that I will say is that if you're going to embark on this, if you're concerned that you've got thyroid problems, first of all, just do as much research as possible and also just step carefully. Try things out, see what works for you, because I find that having been on forums where this high dose iodine protocol is discussed, I found that everyone seems to have a different tolerance to all the different doses and things like that. So you really have to do a lot of trial and error and experimentation to find out what works for you. Don't stick rigidly to the guidelines. I'm making this video at quite an interesting time because obviously the coronavirus crisis is affecting people. Everyone must be affected by this, whether they've had the disease or not. I know 2 friends who have had it and it was like a bad flu. I also know people who have lost relatives to this disease. I have a lot of questions about this whole situation And I think it is relevant to, certainly to my channel, which is called Freethinking Health. The reason I called it Freethinking Health is because I didn't want to be tied to one particular branch of medicine, whether that was alternative or conventional. I want to be open-minded. I tend to go for natural health, but that doesn't mean that I'm against conventional medicine. And I feel that during this crisis, we are being pushed, all of us, down the road of conventional medicine towards vaccines. And I have never been an anti-vaxxer in the past. In fact, in 2015, I went to Costa Rica and I did not think twice about having the vaccine I needed, the vaccines that I needed. I just asked the nurse, what vaccines do I need for this country? And rolled up my sleeve. But this whole situation has concerned me a lot because I feel that we are losing control over our health. And I have always tried to take control of my health. I've always tried to do what's best for me. I've always tried to look after my health. And I don't want someone else coming along and saying, you have to do this for the good of your health and for the good of other people's health, when so little seems to be known about this disease. I do have some thoughts about it. I tend to think, and I know I may be wrong, but I tend to think that in general it's a mild disease, but there is another factor which is making it very severe in some people and maybe causing death in some people. And that factor could be the flu jab. That's what seems likely to me, having read about respiratory virus interference, where apparently some types of flu vaccine can cause respiratory problems, and some types of other vaccines can also trigger respiratory problems. So that's something that I think could be a factor, but I may be wrong. And I think at a time like this, we should be looking at all avenues. We shouldn't just be saying, look, we have a solution here, it's a vaccine and you're going to take it. Dr. Brownstein, who actually created the high-dose iodine protocol, he did an interview recently with Bigtree of the Highwire channel on YouTube, and that video was deleted. Why? Because presumably there wasn't any reason given, but Dr. Brownstein had been treating and apparently curing coronavirus patients or COVID-19 patients with high doses of vitamin C, which for some reason seems to be frowned upon these days, high doses of vitamin D, iodine, and I think it was hydrogen peroxide. And I have seen the video because it's available on some other channels, but not on YouTube anymore. So this is a strange time when natural health practitioners like Dr. Brownstein and many other conventional and natural doctors are not being allowed to give their opinions on this new disease, which is still has a lot of unknowns around it. Anyway, that's all I'll say on this subject for now, but I might come back and say some more on this because it's a very concerning situation for people who are interested in natural health and who like to be proactive in looking after their own health, which is the way that I see things. I know that the high-dose iodine protocol is generally not recommended by doctors, conventional doctors, and yet it's absolutely worked for me. Whether it works for everyone, I don't know, but I want that freedom to be able to try out these alternative treatments. I'm not advocating iodine as a treatment for coronavirus. It's just an example of a treatment for a specific problem, in this case, in my case, underactive thyroid, that is generally frowned upon by the medical establishment. And I really think it's important that people have the right and the freedom to try out alternative treatments on themselves and to choose what works for them. So thank you for all your comments and support, and thanks for watching.